How you doing? Okay, you want to talk to Mama? Well, right now we're ready to eat supper. Kat?
Yeah, I'll come over.
Just a minute. You want to talk to Katie now?
Yeah,
She'll be right here.
How was your day? She was gonna put a little in her. She wasn't.
About Vernon before that we went bowling about every week. Well, his father was one of those fellows that had pants suspenders, and he wore those things up here just about to his armpits.
He was a little short man. Yeah.
Like one fella said, he talked about his church, and they had deacons that would be like that, you know, to wear suspenders. He said that he'd have to zip himself down and see what, looking out among the congregation, see what was going on. But I don't remember.
I don't think people in those days had funerals in their homes very often. I mean, in the church. They had them at homes. And
Or in the
that's why the Amish people do nowadays too. They have funerals in somebody's home.
Right.
And I think that back in those days, the church did the same way.
And the weddings, we didn't have weddings in the church building.
You did?
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
was the
trying to-
next question.
I
Whose
just-
wedding was the first you remember attending?
And I remember going to Buell Piety and Helen, his wife's wedding, and they were the, you know, the rest of the family, all the rest of them almost all of them were married, but he just got married, and they wanted to do something to, people were all around town would hear him, so they put him in a little trucklet or something, and banged, and several others followed, you know, like that, just making a loud noise.
Tin cans tied to the bumper.
Yeah, and she didn't like it at all. Helen didn't like that at all. But she lost out on that for knowing.
Where did they have it?
Hmm?
What kind of building did they have it in?
They went to the authorities' office
Oh,
and got
okay.
married inside that building.
Like the Justice of the
And
Peace?
they didn't have any big, you know,
Yeah.
party or anything like that.
Okay.
So they were allowed to have the rest of the day off when they got taken around town.
With that,
And my dad and mom wouldn't go to that noisy business, you know, they wouldn't go around ringing.
I don't think
Why? That was just for young people.
Okay, shall I go on?
Hmm?
Okay. As a child, what were your favorite toys and what were they like?
I think my favorite toy was just I said before, a nigger flipper. I don't know what you call it.
Slingshot.
Well, a slingshot, but one of those Y things, you know. Had a
Yeah.
big old rubber thing on it, you know, and you had a sack here, you get a stone and aim at something. Pretty straight shooter using that. What do you have?
I remember in Wisconsin, there was in our house there, it was just a little square cabin kind of thing, but anyway, there was a children's storybook. And it was like some big old thick catalog, you know. And I hadn't even read enough by then to know what the story's about, but I'd sit down and look at every page in that old book. It didn't even have a front cover and a back cover on it. It was something been knocked around, I guess, for years, but that was, to me, that was the best. And I had a lot of things in Wisconsin I did that I thought was outstanding and fun. Like we had a little pet deer there. And it was some that the farmers that were, or my granddad and my dad and my uncles and all them that went out in the woods chopping wood, that was what they were doing for a living up there. And they found this little deer there, and there was no mother around it anywhere. They figured she'd been killed maybe or something. But at that time, Warren, my brother, was pole, he was less than 2 years old, but that deer would chase him down and suck on his ear. And of course, he started screaming and yelling, you know. I think about that little boy at church, you know, you saw running around in the thing that, well, he was about that age, because that's the age that he was, but we always remembered those stories, things that we saw in Wisconsin, you know. We could look out across the road at certain times, and if we just sat there and watched it a long time, we'd see a lion-like animal, not a lion probably, but we thought they were,
Coyote.
they
Might be a
were,
bobcat.
we thought they'd beat us up and eat us up or something.
Okay, what games do you remember playing as a child?
Monopoly.
Oh, hide and seek out in the outdoors.
Yeah.
I don't know when Monopoly come along, but I remember playing Monopoly. We kinda like
Okay.
that.
As a child, what did you think you wanted to do as an adult?
Let's see.
You know, back then, I don't think that Dad and Mom encouraged us to do certain things or apply ourselves that much, but just to go through school and whatever attracted you, something like that. I liked to fly, you know, after I got out of the service. I didn't like farming particularly. I don't like pulling the weeds out of flowers now.
We found places to take a sled down the hills there on Grandma and Grandpa's place.
Yeah.
And there was a place they called some bunch of men had a place where they would have a club place. And they would let us go over in their place and ride down our sled, though they didn't want us to bring a lot of kids in there, but they didn't mind, the neighbors did.
But Thelma, as a child, do you remember what you wanted to be as an adult? Like any type of job, profession, or?
Oh, I thought I wanted to be a nurse. I think that's what I would, but my mother just thought that was too, well.
Revealing.
Revealing, I mean. She didn't think I was old enough to be a nurse if I wanted to be. But that's the way it went.
Okay, now the next question is, were there any fads that looked good to you when you were young, and did you participate in any type of fads?
Fast?
Fads.
Fad,
You know,
F-A-D?
yes.
Fad.
You know, like, what's a fad?
What was some passing popular thing to do?
Like, you know, in the 50s,
Hairstyles
poodles
or
folks,
clothes?
There
or-
were, when my folks were growing up, there were like people like speakers would come, and they might be preaching about something that they considered religion, or they'd be somebody that was against all the niggers that lived in their area. They wanted to get them out, or they were Polacks and they didn't want those Polacks in there. And people were just more, I don't know, they just told you how they felt about people and stuff like that. And I never did like that, and I didn't think it should be done that way.
Now, she mentioned about preachers coming in. We used to hold gospel meetings, what we call gospel meetings, but they were called protracted meetings. And like E.M. Zer would come in and he would spend at least 2 to 3 weeks there. And that was every night. So we had different ones, Brother Zer.
And J.C. Rhodey was the one that was
J.C.
the preacher
Rhodey
when I
and-
was baptized. He didn't baptize us.
But they would hold protracted meetings, and sometimes later on, not when we were real small, but later on, if the church building didn't hold the number they expected, they would put up a tent, you know. And
They meet all 7 nights a week for 2 weeks, you think?
Yeah, they would. every
Mostly
night.
just evenings, though?
Yeah, just eat.
Did people come to church in cars, or did they drive horse and buggies
I
up
think
there?
both, honey. Yeah.
Probably both.
Should I try again and just okay. Well, by fads we meant kind of too, like what type of clothes did people wear back then?
Knickers.
Knickers? Okay, and I noticed you always had a tie on and gloves and hats.
Well, Mama wanted us boys to look neat, and we did.
That cedar chest that's in our bedroom, that was my mother's cedar chest. And in that, she had some clothes that she had worn in school. A wool dress or something, and I took that wool dress out of there and made myself a navy blue skirt out of it. She wasn't too happy with me doing it, but that's the only way I could get a skirt. I wouldn't go to the store and buy a skirt. You know, I was supposed to sew, and I did, and I liked to do it.
I remember Jerry telling about when Mother made her underpants.
Oh, yeah.
And she wanted some way to show people that she had a pair of underpants. So she would sit down and she would pull it up just far enough that the underpants would show.
Yeah.
The little bloomers, were they bloomers?
Yeah, little blue.
Well, it's like
Okay.
those little pants that you boys wore, those knee pants, you know.
Yeah.
That was considered the style for boys at that time. If you dressed up, that
Well,
was
at
a church
least
outfit.
we were in style.
Some of the younger pictures of your brothers, especially, looks like a dress.
Or you want to turn it off?
Hello?
Okay, well, I just noticed some of the pictures of your brothers, it looked like they had dresses on when they were young.
When they were babies, yeah.
Yeah.
Charles was one of them that had a
Yeah.
frilly one, didn't he?
Okay, what schools did you attend and what were they like? I'll have to ask that again. Okay, the question I asked was, what schools did you attend and what were they like?
Well, Swayze School is where I attended school for 12 years.
Did you have any kind of kindergarten?
No,
Okay.
No.
They didn't
never
have
knew
kids.
anything about kindergarten.
I went to school in Wisconsin when I first went to school. And apparently I was scared or I didn't want to go or something. Because I would cry and then they said my mother would give me a spanking so I'd go to school. And I remember riding on that bus. One thing I didn't like was it had a heat pipe down through the middle of it. And the adult kids in that class, that bus, would be sitting on the outside. And us little kids,
Hello?
no, they were sitting over the heat pipe. They wouldn't let us little kids sit
Turn
over
it
it.
off.
Hey.
Okay.
The bus took us into where the school was. And we got acquainted with some of the other kids in the neighborhood and stuff. And like, the kids would go down the road just having fun and they'd take rocks and throw them at the telephone lines that were run through that part of the country. I remember that. And try to break those rocks out, and just because they wanted to do something, you know.
What about the heat
But-
runs down that bus?
Well, the bus had a pipe down the middle of it, and the older kids would sit on there and make the little kids just sit out around the edges on the bus. Because it was cold up there when we were going to school.
They didn't have seats on the bus?
What?
You didn't have seats on the bus?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was seats for the little kids too, but we had to sit on the outside edge. Because the bigger ones wanted to sit where it was warm. Maybe they had to ride farther, I don't know, but then that made us unhappy.
So where else did you go to school?
Well, I was thinking about that. When we came back to South Bend after being up in Wisconsin, we lived in a neighborhood where Clara and Ansel lived, and they let us live in the upper part of it because we hadn't decided what we were going to do or what we were going to do. And Dad and Mom found this nice little house over close to the school. And I liked that real well. The school was a nice looking building. It was called John Nooner School, I think. And I think that school is still being used. I can't imagine it would be, but I believe it's still being used for a classroom. But I had to walk a block and a half or 2 blocks or so. And my neighbor girl that went with me, she'd like to get you involved in fussing over something or, you know, punching each other or something like that. And one day I came home for lunch and I had my apron on. I was eating dinner. When I got ready to go back, I forgot to take the apron off. Oh, I didn't know. What am I going to do? And that girl said, well, hide it in somebody's bush and you can get it when you come out. And that's what I did. And I got me home with my apron. But it was a big worry. Boy, I didn't know what I did with my apron.
You went to Green Township School then too, didn't you?
Well, that was later when I was in high school. And in band and stuff like that.
We get to that a little later.
Okay.
in elementary school, I was going to Nooner School, and then I went out to North Liberty. Warren and I went to school at North Liberty, and then when I was in band, I had to go to Walkerton to be the band, sort of like what he told about all bands getting together and stuff. And I was in 4-H. That was one good thing. I wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed going to camp. We had a 4-H camp, and it had you know, beds that rocked back and forth, and they were just lined with heavy lime, you know what I mean, fabric that was like tents or something like that, you know. Our beds were like that, so we had to have all of our clothes, you know, something warm if it was a cold night, because the bed would be cold if you got into it. It didn't have lots of pads in it or something. But they sang a song, I don't know if you've ever heard it or not, because I hadn't heard it, and I learned it, and I thought it was so pretty. Let's see.
Sing it.
La 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 la. I don't think I can sing it now. I don't remember how it went.
But that was a 4-H camp? Mother, that was 4-H camp?
4-H camp.
Okay.
We didn't have church camp at that time, you know. But they were very well disciplined, and they had a good leader in it. Stars do shine. Tell me why the ivy vines. Tell me why the sky's so blue.
I will tell you
Why
what
I love you. Yeah, something like that.
Good job. All right, what was your earliest jobs? You know, like as a kid. I mean, did you have a newspaper?
I had a newspaper route
I had a babysitting job with the neighbors across the...
and grass mowing.
Do you remember what you were paid?
I was paid for a big lawn. It must have been an acre.
I don't know how much.
35 cents.
I think I was paid 35 cents an hour to babysit. Maybe that wasn't even. Maybe I didn't get that much. I don't know. But I liked that because I could make some money. The kids that lived in town, they had ways of making money like he did.
But I look forward to going to, we had in our little town of Herbst, we had 2 grocery stores.
I can't
And-
imagine that.
And
They must have been.
a big elevator, it was quite a big town then, probably 75 people lived there. But in the grocery store, we looked forward to getting a big RC cola. You know, they were pretty tall. Seemed to me I'd pay a nickel for that, but that was the best nickel I ever spent, you know. After I mowed a yard, I deserved it.
I guess.
Okay, now we're back to school. What were your favorite subjects? And were your favorite subjects also your best subjects?
I liked arithmetic. I always got pretty good grades in arithmetic.
That was my difficult area. I didn't like it. I liked social studies. We always seemed to have good teachers in social studies, and they would tell you outstanding things they wanted you to remember, you know. And it was real interesting to me, but of course some of the kids, I couldn't imagine anything more boring than having history and all that. I liked that.
Okay, what were your least favorite subjects in school?
I don't remember that I liked geography that much.
Well, I had trouble with math, and when I was in high school, I had trouble with typing. I don't know why. I would come in there on the riding on the bus to school. My hands would be cold, and I sort of used it as a complaint. But I don't know. I just didn't have good coordination on it or something. It made me unhappy because I was trying to make good grades to go to college, you know, and I didn't want to have that going in my life. And I didn't like math classes either.
Okay, what foreign languages did you study, and have you ever been able to use them?
I had 2 years of Spanish, and I wish now I had learned it well enough to really use it. I don't think I could with kids that are taking Bible courses, but there's an awful lot of Spanish people that are.
I took a year of Latin, and of course a lot of the words that we know today are derived from Latin. I remember, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It was Dominus regit me, et nihil dierit, in loco pasqua ebbe me colocavit.
Wow.
That's
And
good.
nobody could believe whether it was right or not, because they
Well-
didn't know
It was right, huh?
That's right.
it.
Okay. Who was your favorite teacher and why was that teacher special?
I liked my Spanish teacher because she'd do special little, like she had a little short place where we ate some Spanish food, and oh boy, that was, that was something special. And she was attractive, and her husband was another teacher somewhere else, and we just thought she was a dream teacher.
I guess I like Fanny Ray, my first grade teacher, better than anyone. And she was noted for if a kid had a tooth to be pulled, she would pull it and pay them a penny. And they looked forward to that.
Oh my goodness. Did you start in by going to school in Swayze then?
Yeah.
Oh, I wondered it. Now Jerry and Judy were talking about, she did it, Jerry did anyway, she said to Judy, now, were you in the second or third grade? She said, I was in the first grade in that school that was where Zola's
Very
house was built, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So they were just a short distance to school, that they walked to school.
Okay, another school question. What would your fellow classmates from high school remember about you?
I don't know, let's see.
Probably band and music, singing.
Thelma, do you have any?
Well, I was in band, but I wasn't that great at player. What was the question again?
What would your fellow classmates from high school remember about you?
My name was Campbell.
Campbell.
Campbell Soups, you know.
Oh, of course, Campbell soup. Okay. Okay. Now, define appropriate clothing for your school, and did your school have any uniform requirement?
No uniform requirements, I don't know.
No.
Oh, we
Okay.
had to have uniforms for phys ed. Yes, we had to have uniforms for phys ed.
Well, we had uniforms for band.
Right, but what did you usually wear to school? You know, like kids wear t-shirts and jeans now.
When I first started teaching school, girls
didn't want you.
couldn't wear slacks to school yet.
Oh.
They had to wear some kind of dress. And at that time, also came along these big full skirts. You know, you couldn't get through the classroom door because it was popped out so much with stuff inside of it to make it stay out, you know, like this.
Yeah.
Two girls that were from sort of well-to-do families, they could afford to get them, I guess. The rest of us, we wished we could do it, but we didn't do it. We didn't
Thelma,
have to.
did you wear dresses to school then?
I had to wear dresses to school, yeah. Oh, we didn't. I couldn't have worn pants like we wear now everywhere, you know, back then. But, and so the same thing was true in school when I was younger. I had to wear a dress.
I don't remember any time that Dad and Mom took me to a store to get a pair of pants or anything. I thought Mother made all of ours.
Did you have to wear ties though to school?
No.
Or
No, they
you
didn't dress
have
up
to?
like that. They did have to wear pants, but they didn't have to dress up.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Is that good? Okay. All right. What were your extracurricular activities? You'd mentioned music. Is there any other activities that you were involved in at school?
When I was in college, I had to take the swimming test. And I tried and I tried and I tried. Never could quite do it the way it was, you know, make you really swim. But it was a class I was taking in the wintertime. And I had to walk away from that place with my hair wet to where we lived, which was really a satisfactory place because it's right across from this gymnasium where we had this gym class that I was supposed to be learning how to swim in. And I guess I passed the class, but I never have felt real good about swimming. I'm just not that good at it. I sink to the bottom.
Did either of you belong to any clubs while you were in school?
4-H, you heard that, I belonged to that, that's the only thing I could.
I wasn't in 4-H. When I was in college, I took golfing one semester. And when, being an engineering student, you know, we went, we forget what do you call it? we went through the campus of Purdue University with our telescopes and like they do surveying instruments, you know, going from place to place and getting the elevation of certain steps going up into the building. And it's just a method of training an engineering student to use the telescope.
Mother, on your 4-H, did you have animals that you would submit, or
Antelope?
animals?
Oh, animals.
Or clothing, or?
I wasn't taking any of the animals in 4-H. I took clothing and cooking classes.
Okay.
Daddy, did you finish a civil engineering degree? Was that what you had?
No, I didn't finish it. About the end of the second year, I quit school when Jim and I decided to go into business together. And my
He went back
I
to
wasn't
school,
I
though.
wasn't in a full year, and the government only paid for about a couple of years of school, so that's about the extent of it.
But you were in school here.
For the record.
Well, when we moved here, I went to Goshen probably 1 or 2 semesters, didn't
Yeah,
I?
I think so. Taking
She
the
got
sky things. We got to go out and sit in the yard and watch while he tried
astronomy.
to tell where the
Yeah.
things were in the sky, you know. Well, we never, like most kids, we never heard of such a thing until somebody was talking about that knew something about it, you know. And then we went to, over at Prairie Heights High School, they have a nice little
Planetarium.
planetarium there, and they turn out all the lights, you know, and then he can make things move around like the time of the year is. It's really a nice auditorium.
Yeah, it's very nice. Okay, now for the record, so we have it on record, what musical instruments did you play and did you
I
march?
played the clarinet forever and ever.
Were you in the marching band?
I don't think we had a marching band.
Okay, so you just played in the
We played
band.
it for the basketball games.
Okay.
You know.
Well, of course, I mentioned that I played a saxophone,
Right.
and we did a lot of marching. And it's interesting when all the schools got together, and Fred Ratliff was our director, and he went from school to school, and ever so often we'd, for a game or something, we'd get together, all of the county schools, and that was something to look forward to.
When your family would sing, who would play which instruments?
Dad would play the piano.
Didn't
Merle?
Judy play something too?
Let's see. Dad played the fiddle, didn't he? Who played the fiddle? Jim played the fiddle. Dad played the piano. Did someone?
Probably
did
you and
Judy's heart?
probably Jerry was one. She liked to sing, and she was in
Yeah.
a quartet herself.
I don't remember.
I think.
But you also play the piano.
Oh yeah, I played some.
And
with
Judy
him.
played the organ.
Yeah,
Right.
Judy played the organ. Yeah.
But she didn't have that when she was a teenager. You know, that's something she didn't. her
I
husband
don't
got.
remember that Jerry ever played the piano. You know, or took lessons.
Okay, in school, did you and your friends have a special hangout place?
I don't think we
Well,
did.
They had in the schools let out where you weren't supposed to go in the rooms. Like if a teacher had the noon hour or something, their job was to stay with people that were being made to stay in the noon hour room because they were acting up in school or something like
I
that.
guess I married a naughty girl.
No, I didn't say that I
You
did
did.
that. I
Oh.
just said the teachers, they had to let the teachers do that.
Okay, moving on. Were you ever given any special awards for your studies or extracurricular school activities?
Some of that you've sort of covered, but you can.
Yeah, I was in 4-H and that some of that was covered
Right.
in the school year too.
But for your studies, were you given any special awards?
I don't know, Julie.
Okay, that's okay.
Well, you got that award from your music band that wrote you a whole like a letter to you saying what a good student you were and how you were.
No, that was my principal.
Well, okay,
Well,
he wrote that.
yeah, that was
recommendation letter.
near graduation.
I never got anything like that.
Well, that was something.
Yeah, it really was a good letter, I'll tell you. You ought to have it up instead of all these fancy things that show you.
Okay, how would you describe yourself as a young adult? This is a hard one.
Describe myself as a young adult?
Yes.
You're talking about 21 or 22 or something like that?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of wanted to serve my country. I didn't mind, when I went to Pendleton, south of Indianapolis. I was trained there, and then I went to Biloxi, Mississippi, and then I did my basic training down to Biloxi, Mississippi. But the whole camp was quarantined at that time. We couldn't go into the Biloxi at all. And then, of course, I went out to Las Vegas, Nevada to serve about 8 months, I guess, out there.
And there was a church out there.
And there was a church out there, and I'm mighty thankful that there was, because I found a church right away and got involved in the activities there, leading singing and preaching once in a while, things like that.
Wow. Okay. Thelma, how would you describe yourself as a young adult?
Well, I love to be with my younger aunts and uncles, like Jewel and Helen and oh, I can't even think of one of them's name. The middle one, Elmer. I guess his name is Elmer. These young adult families would ask me to come to their house and stay, and I thought that was really nice. I liked to do that because they didn't seem much like my mom and dad. You know? I imagined they were in love with each other. Well, that's not what Mom and Dad showed around to the rest of the family.
Okay, the next question is, what were your college studies, and can you identify any certificates or degrees you earned? I know we talked a little.
When we came here, and I decided I would try to get my degree, that was something that put Kent and Kathy a little bit afraid for me being gone, because they were not ready for school yet. Kathy started school the first year I started teaching, I think. But first thing, I hadn't been driving any since we were married. And he took me out and showed me how to drive, and I drove to Goshen. But I went and took the back roads over there so I wouldn't be where there's a lot of traffic. And one time I got to it was a gravel road, and I knocked the mailbox down off of this place. And so Daddy went out and put the mailbox back up. And I guess they didn't.
Did that start metal?
Am I daddy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He went back and put the mailbox up. And then one other time, I was driving an older teacher here in town. At that time, all the people had been teaching 10 or 15 years. They had to take a renewal and go to classes and, you know, bring things up to date, because they did. After they graduated, that's all they ever did, and they never have gone back, you know. Well, we were going over there. I had taken this other lady with me too, and it was snowing. And she said, I have just got to be there and take that class. I don't want to miss a class and not take the subject. She said, I don't know what they do about it. And I had a course too. I was going over to stay for, but anyway, I slid off in the ditch over on 20. And someone came and got me pushed out, and we went on home then. And I don't know whether she got back over there to take the test or not, but I don't think I did that day.
And I took engineering courses, you know, geometry and trigonometry and calculus and those English and some of the other things required.
When I started
Surveying.
teaching at Wolcottville, they asked all the teachers to take turns of taking the money at the door to pay for this ball game, you know. And I always told Dean, well, stand here right by this place where I'm standing to take the money. And someone had to stand here all by myself. People didn't know who I was either right at first.
So you got a home ec degree? Is that what it was?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And I taught I also had general science too, that 7th and 8th graders, people, I had classes in both schools.
Okay, how did you decide on a career? What made you decide on the career you chose?
Well, sometimes it was just because I didn't have any other opportunities. I worked at the ARC up here for, I don't know, was it 10 years or 8 or 9 years? I was almost at a level to quit working and have 10 years, but it wasn't that long. Because when I first started, I only worked part of the day. They only had, it's for classes that weren't there all day. And I enjoyed doing that work. That was something that people were always outstanding. They treated you outstandingly, you know. They wanted to be doing something that would please the teacher.
Well, I guess I just probably more interested in engineering than anything else. That kind of appealed to me at that time. I didn't want to go in farming or any industry like that. Just
Did you have the metal craft idea in your head already before you came to LaGrange?
no.
The man had business
No.
operation he wanted to sell, and he bought
We
it.
were looking for something to get into, you know, that we might operate ourselves. And I think I saw this in the paper, didn't we? And we drove
Yeah.
over on a Sunday afternoon just to scout it out and see what we could find. And what it was a cast aluminum foundry business that a fellow had started, he had developed. And it was making mailbox nameplates and street signs and ornamental designs. And he set up hardware stores in 3 states. And he would put a sample of what he was making in a hardware store, and they would take orders and send it to him, and he would fill the orders and send it back. Well, he probably put maybe 100 mailbox plates in 3 states around here, so it was a mail order business. So we came to LaGrange based on that, and we've been here 53 years.
Do you remember what you paid for to get into the business?
I think Dad helped me in that respect.
Yeah, he borrowed some money from a friend of his to lend to us, I think.
Okay, well that kind of went into my next question. What jobs have you had? You had mentioned the roller skating rink and...
Muir's Drugstore.
Okay.
I worked at U.S. Rubber Company. That was Ball Band, where my brother worked in Mishawaka. I worked at Bendix over in South Bend.
Well, what was your job at these places?
Engineering department.
Okay.
Drafting.
When we moved to where he took that job on, I got a chance to work at the hospital, at St. Joe Hospital, as a lab operator. And all the time I was there, I was doing lab counts of urinary things. You know, it's sort of a standard opening. If people came in, they always had to have that done. And I did that all the time I was working there until I found out I was expecting you. And so I was still working. And one day I had to go and take blood from a baby that was real short-lived. And when I tried to draw blood from its heel, I couldn't get any blood to come out. And I was really sort of interested to find out what that was. Well, that baby was, had hard, it was what happens when you get two kinds of blood. Now, his blood was different from mine. And I had O positive, no, O negative blood. So I could take any kind of blood. But I was afraid that you would be, your blood would be, I don't know what to call it now. I knew what it was doing then, but I can't remember now. No babies have to go through that now, but it was something that quite often happened. And I thought, oh my goodness, now I'm here and this baby of mine is going to have to, but when you were born, you didn't have any problem with it. I mean, there was any problem with you.
Dad, you worked also on the toll road, didn't you?
Yeah, when I moved to LaGrange, to supplement our income, I worked on the toll road. Yeah. That went in about that
So
time.
you're actually in the construction of the toll road.
Construction and toll road, yeah.
And then we met some people from the church that had us, they had a motel over at Waterloo. And on
J
that
Church.
looked, huh?
J Church.
Yeah. And we thought, wow, would we ever like that? So that's how we got started in that business. Lasted 16 years.
And you also built homes? And you
Sold.
also sold homes?
Didn't do that till after we got sort of settled in the motel though, really. You were just building things onto the motel.
I
all
went
the
into the
time.
real estate business, and I was in there for about 20 years, I guess.
Daddy, do you have any idea how many buildings you built? I mean, I know some of them were apartments in the motel, and houses.
I don't know, maybe a dozen or so. I didn't build that many. I built some over in the Maple Meadows edition
Close
over
to where
there.
Grandpa and Grandma lived, you know, over there.
Can you
And,
build one out of the lake?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you built a couple of them out there.
And the biggest project I had was the church here, the church building. 'Cause
They were
I
always
had-
building something on the church building.
we started that in 1956, and the first let's see I've got all the records of who was there. The first service we had, I believe, it was 1957, and that's about the time we opened the motel too, in 1957. So I was kind of busy at that time.
And you know, I can remember at this last, when they were building this last one, this last edition on here, I would be here at home by myself. You know, your kids are all gone, I guess gone, get married and everything. And I'd be here and it'd be 11 o'clock and he still wouldn't be home, and I was worried about him being over there. And we're thinking something had happened and he might have gotten hurt.
11 o'clock at night?
Yeah, because they were working late, trying to get that new thing going, you know, and it was so big with, my goodness, how are we ever going to stand all of this, you know? It turned out wonderful, I think, but, oh, I don't know. I just, I worried about them a lot, and I called over there a couple of times, and they said, oh, no, they're still working, you know. You just keeping at it.
So do you think you've answered, have you told us all the jobs that you've held? Can you think of any other jobs that you held?
I could probably think of
Or
about
worked at.
midnight tonight, but then
Yeah,
I-
if you think of other places that you've worked at.
But what schools did you teach at?
I taught at Wolcottville and Brighton, and there was a year in between that I had Leslie. No, I had Leslie, I guess.
and then out at Arc.
And how did I take care of Leslie? I was pregnant when I didn't teach at Brighton anymore, but I don't know.
I don't remember.
I guess I quit teaching whenever I found out I was expecting Leslie. That's the way it happened, and I didn't work out there anymore. I just worked at the motel here.
And then you worked at ARC also?
Yeah, that was after the kids all got big enough. Brian was still in high school, weren't you, Brian, when I worked
Yes.
out there?
Yeah.
He came out and got acquainted with some of them. They liked him, and they wanted to be friends with him. And he had to get away from there quick.
I know Mother used to substitute at school once in a while, and that was truly embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know-
she would teach shop, and she never had the first course in shop.
Yeah. In high school.
When,
And then one year they sent me up to Howell to teach, and for some reason I had an upset stomach, and I was just sick of my stomach. And I had to get out and go to the restroom, you know, and oh my. Finally I told them I was having illness as well. I finally decided that's the way I reacted to starting a new job. I always got to feeling sick of my stomach.
Leslie said
when Kent knew that Mama was pregnant again for Les, he wanted a brother. And when Leslie was born, he went around telling Phil, well, everyone, did you hear the bad news? It's a girl.
But she turned out to be a real nice girl.
Yeah, she was a pretty sweet girl.
All right, well, the next question was describe your military service, but I think we covered that.
Uh-huh.
So now we get in to the second page, and these are all questions about the two of you.
The one?
What do you remember about your first dates?
Well, tell them, Mama.
I don't know.
Well, when we went to eat out
Oh, yeah.
north of Lafayette.
He took me out north of Lafayette, out in the country road. It was along the St. Joe River, or no, the Wabash River. And we stopped there to eat supper one night, and that was our first date, I guess. And we didn't get together very much more after that either until we decided to get married, because he was going to Ohio, and I was Richard, or no, Adam's girlfriend said, well, why don't we just get married? And he said, oh, I can't do that yet, you know, I gotta finish college and everything. But anyway, that's what she said. Well, that's the sort of the way I felt too. I didn't say that to him, but I did, you know, I didn't want him to go to Ohio without me. And I was ready, willing to get out of school and do all that, you know.
Brian, Dean, do you remember anything about your first couple dates with Thelma?
Well, I remember that one, but I thought we went back maybe on a Sunday afternoon too.
Went back what?
Or to the same place that you're describing.
Oh, we might have, I don't know,
Yeah, I
maybe
think we
more than
did.
one time. Yeah, it was sort of
And
romantic to go to that place.
at that time, I was in the motel business with Jim, and you would come out.
No,
You never
yeah.
learned, huh?
In the
Skating.
skating business with Jim.
I mean, yeah, in the skating business.
And I never was very good at roller
No.
skating. I didn't like it because I just lose my, that's the way I am now. I lose my balance when I'm walking.
Yeah.
And roller skating,
But I got to be a pretty good skater.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
you
he could
are.
skate.
Okay, describe your wedding proposal. How did you ask her to marry you? We're all dying to
You
know.
probably.
There's nothing
We were-
else to tell you. We told you. We went out together at night and we just
How
sat
did he
there.
ask you?
Hmm?
How did he ask you?
To marry him?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I asked to marry him. I'm not sure.
Honey, I don't remember
We
that.
don't remember all that. He came to the house where we lived. I lived at a girl's house.
Sorority. What?
It wasn't a sorority. It was all those of us that wanted to work hard enough to have a place to live, and it was a nice house. And you could have your boyfriend come over. You just sit there in the living room and talk, you know, for talk and talk and talk.
Marriage came up, huh?
Yeah.
So somehow he asked her. So he didn't get down on one knee, or?
Oh no, it wasn't anything like that. We didn't let people at church know about it. We didn't say anything to them. We told Jim and Ruth, and I suppose they told it around there then that he was going to move away. And we went to Paul and Geneva's, had a little reception there, and
Oh, well, here, I'm going to ask you next to describe your wedding day. Wedding, reception, honeymoon, pictures. What can you tell us about your wedding?
we were married on a Saturday night. Was it a Saturday night?
Well, yeah, go ahead. I was thinking about something else.
About
Uh-oh.
that wedding time?
Well, yeah.
Well, tell me about it.
I don't know if I've ever told you.
Oh,
Oh, well, tell us then.
I don't
they
know
probably
if they
didn't want to
should
get
not.
married.
Well, yes.
Yeah, please do.
They took a picture of us in the church building, and he had tears in his eyes. And
Well,
I think I was about to laugh. I don't know.
After Paul Himes married us, we went to their house for the kind of reception one night.
Yeah.
We stayed pretty late, you know. We got ready to leave and left the house, and Paul said to me, he said, "Now, Dean, don't you do anything that I wouldn't do." I said, "I won't."
Well, we had made good plans anyway. We went to Indianapolis and stayed all night, and we went to church down there where this man that was their minister, he was well known at the time, came to Lafayette and held meetings, and he would come and stay with Dean in the same house where Dean had a room to sleep. And so we went there. We stayed all night in the hotel. And then the next morning we wanted to get up and go to church. So we did. Well, our car still had just married written all over it. They wrote on it with stuff that never did come off good. That car looked that way forever after we used it. But anyway, when people came out of church, then they saw our car, they laughed, you know, and they just said, "Oh, let us help you," you know.
Oh, we had a flat tire, you didn't mention
Yeah, that's
about
what
that.
was wrong with it.
Yeah.
For your wedding, who stood up with you?
Nobody
We
else
didn't.
stood up.
Nobody?
have-
Oh,
we
okay,
didn't
so you
have that.
didn't like have a best man or any of those,
Oh, no.
okay. And
Very
did you,
cheap wedding.
now you said it for your reception, your mother made your wedding cake?
Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't anything too unusual, but she put her time into it anyway.
And the honeymoon, did you go somewhere special?
No, we
You
went
were
to
talking
work.
about
He
that
went
night.
there, and we got a place to live, and he
I
went to
think
work.
Monday morning I was supposed to report at work at,
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
in Springfield, Ohio.
And he worked lots of hours, and I couldn't expect him to come and go with me anywhere in the evening or anything, you know. So during the daytime, sometimes I'd walk up to where the city library was and go in there, but that didn't look very interesting either. And of course, there wasn't any TV back in those days. If you had a radio, you could hear things, but
Now, Thelma, you wore a navy suit with a hat that day.
people asked me, why did I get a navy suit? I just said that's what I felt like I needed in the way of clothing, and I didn't want to get a white dress that was something I wouldn't wear again, you know.
It's what she was married in, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder why she chose that. Okay.
I didn't make it, I bought this fit.
Okay, if they would ask, what advice would you give your grandchildren on their wedding day?
Well, they wouldn't ask us.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do. I've thought of that so many times. Paul was kind of a jokester anyway.
So, any other advice you'd give them?
Well, I remember one thing that Jay Tyler, when he was here, he said that when they were married, he and Cindy, I believe was her name,
Yeah,
the fellow
Cindy.
that said, be careful that don't both of you get mad at the same time. Well, I thought, you know, that's probably right. I
Well,
didn't come up with that, he did.
He did enough stuff, she had a right to get mad at him, I guess. He was working a couple jobs and preaching on a Sunday, you know, so he didn't have didn't have time to do anything with her, and when
He cleaned floors, didn't he, when he had
yeah,
tile?
he was doing stuff like that too.
Mhm.
A lot of hard work, and the summer that they went to camp, she was given about 2/3 of the job that were running that camp, I think, too.
Okay, describe the day you discovered you would be a parent and how you came to find out.
Well, I found out because I had a blood test in the hospital where I was working, and he didn't have to tell. I mean, I didn't have to.
Well, I
didn't have to have a
remember,
test
let's
for
see,
him done, huh?
I remember that in the old auditorium, it was Sunday evening when, this is after we'd had Kent, and when I found out that Kent was going to have a baby, someone had called the building to let us know we were going to be grandparents.
Yeah, that was my next question.
And while I was up there making the announcements, Fred Oakley walked up and gave me this slip. And I guess I just, you know, I let it all out.
Oh.
Do you remember when you found out Mother was pregnant with Kathy?
With Kathy?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't
think
remember.
because I was working there then, and I had that test done, and I think
All I wanted a girl to begin with, and it seemed like the Lord gave us just what we wanted.
Aw.
You know,
Don't tell that to Kent now. He'll say that.
I remember when Leslie was to be born. Of course, Kit and I were the only ones, and we thought, you know, we would always be the only children in the family. But Mom and Dad told us that someone was going to come and live with us, and we kept thinking, well, you know, who could it be? Edward had come and just spent, I don't know, a couple of days or something with us, and we were guessing him, and we tried to guess, you know, Grandma
Edward,
or
you
something.
mean you were
When
thinking-
when you were carrying Les, when you were pregnant with Les,
Uh-huh.
and we didn't know yet, and so you were trying to give us clues about your pregnancy, and Kent and I couldn't guess. I mean, we just didn't have any idea. And you said
That
you
was
were
about
gonna-
8 or 10 years later, wasn't it?
Well, I was 10 and Kent was 8 at
Yeah.
the time when
Well,
she was born.
You should have caught on, because most settlers had all kinds of kids in their family.
Well,
Not yet, though.
we
but-
were
You were
thought we
the
were the
oldest
only
one, weren't
ones.
you?
So
Yeah.
anyway, it was nice. It was a good surprise.
What surprised you about parenthood?
Surprised us. There
I
were
suppose any individual.
there were several in our
daughter-
family. Of course, I was the baby, but I don't
Kent
know
had
if
to have
anything.
his foot.
About being a parent, Daddy. What's about you being a parent?
He had this, ankle that was out of shape. Instead of being like this with your foot, it was sort of turned around this way. And so he had to have surgery. But he didn't have surgery till about the time I was expecting Leslie.
No,
They-
Mother. Oh, okay, all right, maybe, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was about 8 or 10 years old, and there was that much time between him and Leslie.
I don't remember it, Julie.
He had the surgery, and I was pregnant, and every time I go to the hospital to see him, they'd say, well, this isn't the right floor for surgery. I'd laugh about it.
Okay, the next question. What funny or unusual things do you remember about each of your children when they were young?
They were
Well,
only-
you just mentioned Kent, about him. Do you remember anything funny or unusual about Kathy or Leslie or Jean or Brian?
I don't know when they finally quit it, but they were all three taking a bath at one time in that bathtub downstairs. And I just gladly let them get down there and play in the water for the evening. Didn't think much about it, and pretty soon the girls decided he ought to wear some pants to be taking a bath with them. And that's what they did. They made up for it by wearing pants to shower.
I don't know how old Kent was when he fell off of the first floor into the basement.
I
Oh,
remember that.
yeah.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
before Leslie was born, I believe.
But that seemed to be pretty serious, but it wasn't all that bad.
No, they didn't. They
But,
said, they told us what to do if he acted
was on the
half
lake
out or
house.
I
something.
remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, how did you decide on names for your children?
I like the name Kathleen. I always thought she'd be, but she never was called Kathleen. Everybody called her Kathy.
it seemed to me when you were in the hospital, they gave you a list of maybe 200 names that you could probably look through
Oh
to.
well, they probably did. But I
They
don't
probably did,
remember.
but
I don't know why
Les-
they did.
Les-
You didn't associate her name with your sister?
No, we didn't. I didn't know that he had
Okay.
a sister named Kathleen.
now, let's see, Leslie Deanne, she was probably named after me, you know.
Brian,
Brian Paul. Right?
And Brian, when he got to go to school, he was mad because his name was Kent, because at that time cigarettes were coming out with the name Kent.
Oh,
Kent cigarettes,
but
He said,
Brian
"Why
was
did you
named
name me
after
that?"
Paul Himes.
yeah,
Paul
probably
Himes.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Himes was
Paul
the one
Himes.
Brian
Yeah.
was named
Uh,
after.
Brian
How did
Paul.
you pick Jean's name?
I like the way people said Jean Marie,
Yeah,
that
Oh.
French name, But
no one ever called
that sometimes was boys' names, I think,
Yeah.
or something different. But I just liked the way it sounded together. I thought it was pretty
Oh,
nice.
that's nice. Okay, what was the most difficult part of being a parent?
Just doing everything he had to do. He learned to pick breakfast for all of them. He knew how to make pancakes or something. I was
I guess
finding
she's
their
maybe
clothes so they get dressed.
trying to organize her time so someone would be with the kids all the time, you know.
Okay. Oh, 2 minutes, we better stop.
That was that was Kathy and Kent's job, was taking care of the three little ones.
Yeah. They were a big help.
Well, I think we're gonna have to stop again.